So let's use Excel to help determine the closest Super Bowl games. And of course, it all depends on how you define it. But first of all, let's go to this site, Pro Football Reference, and this is where I got the data from. As you see over here, you scroll down a ways, and there's a whole bunch of neat information in here. But this is what I use, the box score, play by play. So you can export it to Excel, and then you can sort of format it, and you get the different games, and you do your formulas. So let's go back to Excel now. And basically, the first thing I did was this. Here's all the original data right in here, and then I add all these formulas. These formulas over here basically are sort of printing a row or displaying a row every time there's a change in the score of the game. So here, there's a 2-point difference, and then someone over here, there's someone, they score a field goal, so now it's up to 5. So this next sheet is I'm simply taking out all of that data. I'm taking all of this data here and removing the blanks. Okay, and then the next sheet, this is where I do all the math. Basically, I take all those data points and I sort of bin them into the time. Here's the time of the game, 0 when it starts, and then every 30 seconds I'm getting like a snapshot of what the difference in the score was. Doesn't matter who's winning, but just the difference in the score. So over here, that 1991 game with the Bills and the Giants, it is one of the closest, but according to this way of doing it, which is just my personal way, but it's not the closest game. The closest game was actually 1989, which was San Francisco against the Cincinnati Bengals. So, close score, how do I get this? Basically, all I'm doing is adding up all the differences throughout the game, and then to make the number a little bit more readable, I divide by 100. Now, largest point difference, that's interesting to see, which is, 4 is the largest point difference for this particular game, but the score is not as small as this one here, 1.8, so we can get into that later. And then this is interesting as well, average point difference. But I decided to go with the close score, which, as I said, is just taking all those differences and adding them all up. So now let's go over to the percent rank. So here, this is simply in order of last year's game at the top and going backwards as we go down. And here's my close score. Here's the final score point difference, which doesn't necessarily, they do correlate fairly well. But here we see that 1991 game, 1-point difference. Really, this is the closest game. It has the most exciting finish. There's a few more games that are really exciting at the end. But interesting. Let's go to the next sheet now. So now I've got it ranked according to my, my close score. I think I should alter this to give bonus points for a very exciting finish. But anyways, 1.8, and this game was really, really close throughout the whole game. No one was ever winning by 10 points or anything more like that. The largest point difference was 7 with 1 touchdown. And that was only for, 1 minute. So most of the game it was either a 0-point difference or a 3-point difference. Now, why is this game in here? The Steelers and the Rams. Well, it only got, the final score, the difference was 12, but that was only at the very end of the game that it got a little bit out of hand. For most of the game, it was very, very close game. So we'll go to this next sheet, and now in these two drop-downs, you can pick the two games you want to compare. You see the data, you can sort of compare as you scroll down. So if we scroll down here, you'll see throughout the game that there's a point right about here. This makes a difference when it's a 7-point difference, 1 touchdown, and then we go a little bit further down, then there's a 9-point difference. So right in there, and that's quite a ways. In the other game, it's pretty much 3 points or 0 points the whole entire game. So let's go to our final thing here, the chart. So on the chart, you sort of see it plotted out. This is the beginning of the game. This is the end of the game. This is a 0-point difference, and this is a 10-point difference. So let's look at the Giants and the Bills. It's 0 points, 3 for a little bit, back to 0, up to 7, and then 9, and that's quite a ways there, where it's almost getting out of hand, but then Buffalo comes back. It's 2 points, then it's 5, 2, and then of course that exciting finish, a 1-point difference, and they miss that field goal and the Giants win. So if we look at the 49ers and the Bengals, the final score difference was bigger. It was 4, but you look at the blue line here. You can't. It's 0 here. 0 all the way along, up to 3 for quite a while. Back down to 0 to 3, Then it gets up to 7, but just for a little bit of time back to 0. And then at the very end of the game, it becomes a 3-point difference and then a 4-point difference. So really, I mean, there's so many different ways to look at this stuff, and you can compare these games. Of course, why this game? I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but it was pretty close for most of the game, and then at the very end, a late Steeler touchdown, it makes it look not as close, but extremely close for most of the game. So I hope you enjoyed this and enjoy the Super Bowl.